Don't spend any money on a graphic design degree. I know that sounds so dramatic, but I just want to share with you what I wish someone would have shared with me when I was 18 years old and thinking about this career path. Hello, I'm Brooke. I have a craft business called Hooray Paper, and I will put the link in the description below if you're interested. This isn't my typical YouTube content, but I've just been really feeling compelled to share this information with anybody who is thinking about going down this path. I am currently 45 years old, so midlife if I'm lucky enough to make it to 90. And in midlife, we typically look back at decisions that we've made and wonder how life could be different if we had chosen differently. So let's start in the beginning. I graduated with a bachelor's in visual communication design, which is a fancy way of saying graphic design. And it wasn't until then that I found out that it's very hard to get into. Pretty much every single job posting said minimum of 5 years experience. I had no idea. It took me about 6 months to even get an interview out of college. I didn't get the first one, but I luckily had a second one right after that I did get an offer, which was $25,000 a year. And I know that there are people that work for less than that, but the degree that I had, the college that I had chosen, was $20,000 a year. So I had spent $80,000 to make $25,000 a year. And does that make any sense? It just felt like a scam. And yeah, I know this is just one job. There's lots of jobs out there. Maybe I chose poorly and I should have said no and kept on looking. But I needed that 5 years experience. So I took the job and then later found out that in an interview, you need to make sure that you ask about vacation time and holidays, because this specific job had 0 vacation days the first year and only 3 holidays. Most companies, I don't know the exact amount, but you get, like Labor Day, Memorial Day, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and all of the holidays. We had Christmas Day, Thanksgiving, and New Year's Day. That was it. We had to work Christmas Eve. And I know that there are people that work 3 jobs and that they work all of these holidays, but I'd spent $80,000 for this. I just felt like I had been scammed, basically. So looking back at this time, I had no idea about money. I thought that $30,000 was like the average salary. I thought most of the people walking around made 30. I knew doctors and lawyers made more. I knew other jobs made a little bit more than average, but I just thought that was normal. And while I was doing that, so my parents still paid for my car insurance and my cell phone bill. And I'm not proud to say that, but they did. I wasn't contributing to my 401k because I didn't have enough money to do that. The apartment that I had was like $406 a month, which does not even exist these days. And I still was barely surviving. And that's the other thing that we kind of take for granted. We live with our parents and we think, this is my life. This is my lifestyle. This is, how it's going to be for the rest of my life. And you don't realize, maybe you should ask your parents, how much do you make? Because this is the same lifestyle that I want to stay in. So I need to make sure that I'm making as much as you, or at least as much as you did when you started, and to move up. And no one had ever talked to me about this. And it's not that I didn't have people in my corner, but my mom never went to college and my dad passed away before I was old enough to talk to me about college. My stepdad went to college because his friend was going to college. He just went to the same one that his friend went to, and somehow he ended up with a PhD from Harvard. I don't know. He is very smart, but I'm sure he just didn't think that anybody really needs guidance. It just happens, And my brother chose the college that was offering him a D1 football scholarship, so that made sense too. So in this time of barely surviving on $25,000, I was job searching all the time. And it wasn't until 2 years later that I finally got another interview. I had not a single interview in the 2 years. It was like almost 2.5 years. And I finally got one. And when he asked how much I was looking to make, I said 30, because I still thought 30 was normal, even though I knew I could barely survive on 25. And I didn't really think about, is $5,000 really going to make that much of a difference? It doesn't. So I was making 30, and then a few months after I had been there, I found out that the person before me had been making 44,000. So I could have been making so much more. But even at 44,000, it's like I paid $80,000 and spent 4 years of my life doing this degree. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. So then 2 years after that, so while I was at that job, I did have 3 interviews with like cute little design firms or small ad agencies. I really wanted all 3 of them. I didn't get them. I was so upset. But then that company, second company, was being sold to a bigger one. It was going to be a farther commute to a busier part of town. I didn't like the guy that was going to be my boss, so I was really desperate, and I found this 4th place to interview with, and it was teeny tiny, but the building they were in was so cool. I'll put a picture. I couldn't find a picture of the exact building, but this one is a market that's like on that same street. It's like, it looked just like that, but it was blue. It was so cool. So I can't remember. I think he offered me 32. I think that was just what he offered. And I said, how about 35? Knowing that that other guy had 44, but I really wanted to work here and I didn't want to push it too far, but I was like, at least 35, at least that'd be $5,000 more, the same bump that I had taken before. But he said no, 32. And I took it anyway. It was a shorter commute, and I had a good feeling. I thought I had a lot of confidence in the owner of the company. So I took it, and it ended up being great. It grew to be a good size agency for Indiana. So, and they're still thriving today. And that is the other thing. So those 3 interviews that I just told you that I was so sad that I didn't get, all of them went out of business while I was at my 3rd job. So if I had gotten any of those, I would have just lost my job out of nowhere. And they never were as successful as this company is now. So I'm so grateful that I didn't get those 3. So if you are feeling defeated and you're not getting the jobs after interviews, I really think that there's something better waiting for you. So just be patient. And I know it's hard. I even cried about that one. I was so upset because I thought I had it. So I'm at this job, the 3rd job, and so I started at 32, and the owner was really awesome, and we were growing, we were making more money, so I did get some really good raises. He was a great boss, and I don't want to say exactly how much I was making because they're still in business, and so if he saw this, I wouldn't want him to be like, I can't believe you told that, and also, gosh, I hope nobody that I know sees these videos. I think that's the weirdest part about making these videos. Like, I don't care if every single stranger in the world sees them, but if somebody that I know sees them, I'm just so shy, and I don't know. Anyways, so I don't want him to know, but it was almost double, not quite double. And so it was better, but it's still, to pay that much money. And so yes, if you're thinking, well, I will just get a cheaper degree. Yes, you can. I don't know how much the cheapest degree is though. And is anything really worth it? Because especially at starting at 25, you could probably just go be an admin somewhere at some office and make that much, or probably more. So also, okay, so the 3rd job was my dream job. It was an ad agency. It was in this really cool building. We grew out of the one that I showed you into this other one, and it was like closer to the circle of Indiana, like the heart of downtown Indy, so I could like walk around on my lunch break. And yeah, it's not New York City, but like I just love being downtown. I'm from Indiana, so Indianapolis has a feel. I know that's silly, but I loved it. I loved that job. Well, until I didn't. I mean, the things that they don't tell you about ad agencies is that you have to track your time. So every 15 minutes you have to, and you don't have to stop every 15 minutes. Like if you were working 3 hours, then you would track your time. I did 3 hours with this client. And that is really stressful. It's harder than you might think. And you have to do it because that's how you charge your clients. But I hated that part. And then the worst part is that I would be so busy. I would have this to-do list like so long, and I'd be like working away because I don't want to stay there all night. And an account exec will come over and be like, we need to have this done by the end of today. And I'm like, but I already have this. And they're like, well, you need to add this to it. And there was a lot of people that they just like stayed there like long hours. They worked long hours. And I think that's a known thing that in ad agencies, you work long hours, but I tried so hard not to. But so I just was like Speedy Gonzalez all day trying to get all of this stuff done so that I could go home and like enjoy my life, And when I got pregnant was when we ultimately had to decide, is this job even worth it? So we looked at the cost of daycare, which if you've never looked, it's about $20,000 a year for daycare. So with my salary, that's a huge chunk of it. And I had moved once I got married, so my commute was long again. It was 45 minutes. So that's an hour and a half out of my day of just driving, plus the 9 hours that I had to be in the office. And my husband had to travel quite a bit, so I would have been on my own a lot. But that's not part of my point is that I just wasn't making enough money. My husband's mom stayed home, my mom stayed home, so it felt normal to us. I know that it doesn't for everybody, but I did love it. And then right before my daughter turned 1, the first Cricut Explorer came out, and that's the one that you can, upload your own designs. So I started my own Etsy shop, and at first I was making like nothing, but as the girls have gotten older and older, I've made more money on it. And I still don't make as much as I made at even my first job, but at least I'm home. And, if the girls need to come home sick or, want me to volunteer or chaperone at their school, I can do that. And it's worth it. But there's so many times that I just look back and think, what if I had become a forensic scientist? I know that's totally random, right? I think about this a lot. There was a friend in my 20s, that's what she did. And I remember when she first said that, I thought, how did you ever even come up with that? I never even thought of that. And there's so many jobs that I never even thought of. And I don't think I ever actually asked her how she came up with it, or I don't remember, but she seemed to be making good money. I mean, she didn't like her job really. She kind of complained about it, but she was making a lot more money than I was. And I was thinking, I'm not really enjoying this job anymore. I mean, I love saying that I work here. I love walking around downtown on my lunch break. There are a lot of things about it that I love, but ultimately I hated it. So why not do a different job that I hated that I could get paid 2 or 3 times as much, right? Yeah. So if you are in high school, no matter what you're considering, look at every single job option. Talk to your parent and ask your parents about money, because that's the other thing. And you might be thinking, well, you didn't make money in design because you didn't ask for it. But the third one, they would not have given me. They wouldn't even give me 35. And I Googled, the average, and Google says it's 60,000. Like the average graphic designer makes 60,000. But then, I don't know, I looked up at Reddit, and according to Reddit, that's real people commenting. And I think 40,000 is probably more average. There was one person that said he was making like 125 a year, but he said he worked for the largest athletic apparel brand in the world. So yes, there are those jobs. There are those companies that pay everybody that works for them very well. But to get one of those jobs is very difficult. And if you are like me and you just live in a small town, like small town Indiana or Midwest, those jobs don't exist here. Maybe there are a few. We do have some big companies here, but I don't know that they necessarily even have graphic designers. So I just really recommend talking to your parents about money, especially if you like the lifestyle that you have with them. Ask how much they make. And neighbors, ask neighbors. Normally you don't talk about money, but when you're young and you're looking for careers, and if you're asking them about career, and you don't have to say how much money do you make right now, you could say, like what kind of salary did you start out with and how much do you make now? Or what's the range? Just ask a range, just so that anybody in your family, any neighbor, your friends' parents, anybody that you think like they seem happy and they seem to have a good life and enough money to be comfortable, ask them about it. Ask even, about college, how their college experience was and all of it. I wish I would have done that. So one other thing too that I want to just share is that, there was a girl in my design classes and she was a year behind me. So I saw on Facebook that she graduated when I was in my first job making $25,000 a year. She graduated and then went right back to school for nursing. And at the time I thought, what the heck is she doing? She's like the best one in our group. And now looking back, maybe she did the same thing. She went on interviews like I did and got offered nothing and thought, nope, I'm going back to school, And there also was a girl that was a salesperson for one of the printers that we worked with. And I remember the first time I met her and she was so happy and pretty and put together and well-spoken. And I remember she said, oh, I used to be like you. I used to be a designer, but now I do this. And I remember thinking, why would you want to be a salesperson for a printer? That sounds terrible. And now I'm like, that sounds wonderful. I doubt she's stressed out and I'm sure she's making double what I am. Last night, I was reading the comments on a Facebook post about our local peony festival, and my mouse was on this woman's name, and I couldn't help but notice her info that popped up. She went to the best art school in Indiana, and now she's working as a medical assistant at the local hospital. I felt like it was telling me, post the dang video already, because I've recorded this, edited it, and deleted it several times in the past year. I almost forgot probably the most important point of this entire video. So this is a different day, a different shirt, but let's get to one of the main points, and that is AI. I probably don't even really need to tell you why AI would be a reason to not be a graphic designer, but we all know that it's hurting artists. And I don't think that's going to completely eliminate our jobs, but it's definitely going to eliminate a good bit. And also Canva, if you aren't familiar, is a website that's basically a dumbed down version of Adobe Illustrator. It's free and then you can pay for upgrades, but basically anyone can go in there and feel like a designer. There's templates too that you can use, and I just feel like that too is also really hurting our career and making it seem like graphic design is less valuable than it used to. Another point that I just want to touch on is that I think part of why I chose design was that I didn't think I was smart enough to do most of the other jobs. My GPA in high school was awful. And what I learned in college, my sophomore year, my roommate, she would never just sit on the couch and watch TV. She always had a book or a study guide or notes out that she was reviewing, and not necessarily studying, but she just was always reviewing. And so then of course I couldn't just sit on the couch while she was doing that. So I would bring my things and I would review, and my GPA at the end of college was like a whole point higher than in high school. That's how terrible my high school GPA was. But I didn't even try in high school. I mean, I turned in all of my assignments and I would sort of study before a test, but I didn't even really try. You are smarter than you think you are. I guarantee it. So those are just some things to think about, and I hope that I didn't crush your dreams. I'm not trying to do that. If you really love design, I would highly recommend going to school for business so that you can start your own business, and then, and it can be an ad agency or a design firm. Because my third job, that boss, he is doing very well for himself. So owning your own business is great, and you can still do the design. Eventually, you'll probably hire other people to do the design. And let me tell you another thing. Now that I am 45, there's just, I know when you're young and you're like excited about it and you love design and you think this is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. But as you get older, it just kind of, I don't know if the creativity leaves you or just the excitement leaves you, or just working with other people leaves you. Because honestly, clients are so difficult. Some are awesome. Some clients can just be so difficult and so tiring, and it just kind of takes the fun out of it, So I'll wrap this video up now, and I just want to reiterate that this is just my opinion, my experience. Everyone has different experiences, but I really, truly think that my experience is very similar to most people who chose graphic design. But the choice is up to you, and I know that you are capable of doing great things, and you're going to be so successful. If you are a Cricut crafter, you must be crafty if you're thinking about design, then I would love for you to subscribe to my channel, because I would love to have you around. And if not, then I hope that you have a great, successful future.